Well, hello there, and welcome in everybody to a brand new edition of College Basketball Coast to Coast live here at the 2024 Men's Final Four, Glendale, Arizona. And then there were two, as in UConn and Purdue, ready to play in the Men's Basketball Championship National Championship game on Monday night, State Farm Stadium here just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. I'm TJ Rives. He's Tyler Jones. We're live on the social media platforms of College Basketball Coast to Coast, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, and we're also streaming the audio on TuneIn right now live. So wherever you're hearing us from on Sunday afternoon from the desert, in the West, all over the country, all over the globe through the internet. Who knows where else they're listening to us, including in outer space. Never know. On this, we're here to talk college basketball. We're here to talk about UConn and the matchup with Purdue as UConn goes for the repeat. Purdue goes for history. They've never won a national championship. Tyler, good to be with you. We've had probably about 14 hours to digest everything, a little bit of food, a little bit of rest. What are your thoughts as we open up as the 2-1 seeds advance to the title?
This is the matchup we all wanted, right? We wanted to see UConn get a chance to defend their title from a year ago. They've been the best team in college basketball the last two seasons. And Purdue with the redemption story after getting bounced by Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round last year, the second ever 16 seed to defeat a 1 seed to make their way back, and now with one more chance to avenge what happened a year ago. We're going to have a great storyline, one way or the other, tomorrow night. And how about the bigs as well? We hear all the time, especially on the NBA side of things, how the big man is dying. Not the case tomorrow night, as we're going to see Clingan on one side and Zach Edey on the other.
Well, in specific, it seems as though the center, as you're mentioning, has been phased out, but both of these teams rely heavily on those centers, obviously, Zach Edey and Donovan Clingan, and they both delivered in the title semifinals last night. In particular, Edey, another 20-point, 10-rebound game. And for Donovan Clingan, not just the points and the rebounds, but what he does on the defensive end, blocking shots, altering shots. These two guys were big reasons why their teams won on Saturday night.
Yeah, certainly so. And you look at both of them. Did they play their best games on Saturday? No. But they made the necessary plays they needed to give their teams a chance here. And I think when you look towards Monday night of these two going head-to-head here, we're expecting that they should kind of cancel each other out and then come down to the other guys to see who's going to step up more and kind of fill the void, if you will, after those two cancel each other out potentially.
So that's the voice of Tyler Jones hanging out with me. I'm merely TJ Rives. We are here on the Sunday in between the semifinals and the championship game, live on College Basketball Coast to Coast. Thank you for finding us. Again, Ari Russell will be by later on in this program. Also, in a few minutes, we'll hear from Adam Zagoria, our insider, NJ.com and the Zags blog. We love Adam's insight. He has really been in and around this UConn team for the last 2 years in the Big East. Of course, Danny Hurley has New Jersey ties. That's who Adam writes for in part. And they're going for history. They're going for something the Florida Gators did earlier this century, 2006, 2007. And the only other team in the last 50 years of college basketball was Duke, 91, 92. And as Adam will make mention, there's an interesting brotherly connection between the UConn attempted repeat and the Duke repeat of the early 90s. One thing we need to convey, being around the Glendale area, I think Northern Indiana is emptying out right now to try to come here. They easily, elaborate on this, had 30,000 and maybe it was closer to 40,000 Purdue fans inside State Farm Stadium that had over 74,000 there in the football stadium. A lot of it was Purdue, and I think a lot more of it will be here on Monday night.
Yeah, a lot of upper-level seats in the 300s were Purdue fans. I wonder if the airline companies are adding more flights in the next day or so from Indianapolis to Phoenix, because if you're a Purdue fan, you've been waiting for this moment. This is the biggest game in the history of this program. It's what it all comes down to. And, you know, we got an interesting storyline here of can Zach Edey carry this team to beat UConn in the sense of here's how I look in that matchup, TJ. It's the player of the year versus the best team, similar to what we're seeing now in the women's championship of Caitlin Clark, the player of the year versus the best team in South Carolina. What gives?
So it's a good segue because we are well aware that we're doing this show live, what we had already planned, with the women's title game ongoing. Iowa and Caitlin Clark playing South Carolina, the number one team in the country, undefeated. Dawn Staley's team a year ago was undefeated, and Caitlin Clark and Iowa beat them in the Final Four. And now you turn around a year later, and Iowa, with Clark as the player of the year, has beaten the defending champion LSU, who beat them a year ago in Dallas, and then has turned around and beaten the iconic program UConn in the semifinal. And your reward is you're playing the best team in college basketball for the women, South Carolina. What a gauntlet to have to run. So we are aware, Tyler, that game is underway. We've got an eyeball on it, but we're talking men's Final Four as well here. And we also understand there are a lot of people that may be seeing this later in the afternoon, later in the evening, or even on Monday. We'll be back live on Monday as well here on college basketball coast-to-coast platforms, including TuneIn for the audio, but YouTube, Facebook, etc. We will be here Monday, 3 Eastern time, noon Pacific as well, with the preview. Quick comment from you, because so much has been made, and we didn't really talk about this yesterday, about the whole moving screen, and was it the right call, and is this controversial with what happened in the semifinal win over UConn? It was going to be the game-winning opportunity for UConn, down by 1 when the moving screen was called. Where do you come down on that, Tyler Jones, just real quick?
It was the right call, and I understand that people aren't going to like when it's called in the moment, but when you're an official, it doesn't matter what the clock says. You still got to make the right call in every situation. You know, as a Chiefs guy like myself, everybody points to the infamous James Bradbury play right here at this stadium, actually.
In the Super Bowl.
In the Super Bowl a couple years ago. But it was the right call. Doesn't change just because it's late in the game.
There's no doubt. By the way, the Iowa start is 10-0 on South Carolina with Caitlin Clark bombing them in. All right, so 2 points that I'm going to make. First of all, it's not just the right call, it's the only call.
Yes.
My father, who will see this at some point, was a longtime official, and he has said this forever as a way to emphasize it. 100 times out of 100, you have to call that moving screen because it is a body block, and it is also a forearm, a chicken wing forearm, to get the best player, Paige Beckers, free for the potential game-winning shot. It's the only call. It's not just the right call. It's the only call in that instance. And one more thing, because we have been inundated with what I like to call the UConn media mafia, which is not only Rebecca Lobo on every one of these national championship games, but they've even got an alternate feed with Sue Bird and Diana Taurasi.
Yes.
All right, they're all accomplished, national champion, high-level college basketball players, and where did they all go to school? And where is their allegiance, as we know, right? I'm not putting you on trial.
Right.
I'm just saying to the audience. So I think most of us are about up to here with listening to the UConn media mafia talk about how it wasn't a foul, or Caitlin Clark isn't one of the greatest of all time, et cetera, et cetera. Let's just enjoy the fact that she's the greatest scoring force that they've ever had in women's college basketball. That's why she's broken all the records, career and single season and NCAA tournament. And we'll see how this plays out over the next couple of hours. I can tell you right now, while we're looking out of the corner of our eye, she's destroying South Carolina in the championship game. They're up 15-5, and she's got 8. She's got 8 of the points. So let's see how it plays out. But where do you come down, because we're big on the sports media, where do you come down on this whole thing with the UConn voices being everywhere and in some ways knocking her while all this is going on?
So I'll say this, to be fair, when you've won, 11 national titles at UConn, there's going to be a lot of representation out there just because of their greatness. I think that's worth pointing out first. But
Caitlin Clark just made another three-pointer, by the way.
18-7. She's got 11 points with 6 minutes to go in the first quarter. So I think that to set the scene, that you got to say that first. But even with that said, it feels like a vendetta of sorts against Caitlin Clark coming from that UConn allegiance. I did hear Diana Taurasi say today she's rooting for Caitlin Clark and Iowa to win this game, and that she wants to see Caitlin Clark be on that stage. But that's the first I've heard from any of that UConn mafia to even say anything remotely positive.
Well, and Rebecca Lobo was already on the record after the LSU win that she cannot be considered the greatest player of all time, which I don't know how you distinguish greatest player of all time from any of these great players that I'm about to name. Cheryl Miller, Candace Parker, Lisa Leslie. In Cheryl Miller's case, she won national titles. Candace Parker was a Player of the Year at Tennessee and won a national title. I go back to Shaniqua Holesclaw and Nikki McRae at Tennessee. Now you come forward to the UConn dynasty of Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Brianna Stewart, who won multiple national championships, Rebecca Lobo as well. A lot of those people won multiple championships. So Rebecca Lobo's point was, how do you distinguish players if you're not distinguishing by championships? Multiple championships outdoes one, if that's the case. All right, so I kind of understand that argument. Anyway, we're going on and on about this, but I'm just pointing out here that she's a step away with her Iowa teammates from immortality with this run. She's the all-time leading scorer, and we should be celebrating that. And there are about to be, apparently, as much as 20 million or more that are going to watch this right now. We're watching it out of the corner of our eye on network TV. They had 14 million on ESPN Friday night. Sunday afternoon, much better viewing day. The buildup for this has been amazing over the course of the last few weeks, and this is the culmination of it. And this game, no disrespect to UConn and Purdue in the men's Final Four, this game may have more audience just because of the casual sports fan and even the non-sports fan, the non-female sports fan that has decided to be interested here in this because of the Caitlin Clark story. Your thought on that?
Yeah, and I think the star power thing you and I were talking about this morning, I think has a huge part of it, of the star that Caitlin Clark has become. And then you'll look at tomorrow night, the best player in the country, Zach Edey. How many people of the casuals would be able to spot Zach Edey in a random crowd?
Now, granted, he's massive, but you're saying figuratively.
Right.
If you know faces, do you know LeBron's face? Do you know Otani's face? Mahomes' face? This is your point.
Right.
Do you know Edie's face? Now we bring it to this. Do you know Caitlin Clark's face?
Yes.
Everywhere.
Right.
That's the point.
Like you and I, we know who Zach Edey is,
Right.
obviously, but the NCAA and I would say even Purdue and the Big Ten to an extent have not marketed Zach Edey at all. I get that his game isn't aesthetically pleasing, if you will, but the guy's been terrific. He's been the best player in the country. I think he belongs in the discussion of one of the all-time greats, especially if he could win tomorrow night as well. But that doesn't fit the narrative of what the NCAA and others want to push.
No doubt. He's Tyler Jones. He's with me for a few more minutes. Ari Russell will be here in a little bit, live in Glendale, Arizona, as we get ready for the men's title game, UConn and Purdue. Adam Zagoria, our insider, I spoke with him a little while ago here on this Sunday, day in between the semifinals. He's going to have great insight on UConn going for the history. How excited are you as we build up to this that we could be sitting here about to see something that hasn't happened in 17 years and has only happened twice previously in the last 50 years? We're talking about college basketball immortality now. If UConn can get this, how excited are you, Tyler?
Oh, very intrigued. And think about how tough it is to compete in college basketball right now. We're talking NIL, transfer portal. What UConn has the chance to do tomorrow night, winning back-to-back, is incredibly difficult. I mean, we had a stretch where the defending champ couldn't even get past the second round over the last decade. And now we're looking at them going back-to-back with a team that's even better than what they were a season ago. Credit where credit's due to Dan Hurley to weather the storm and to persevere through the circumstance of rebuilding this team when they lost 3 starters to the NBA a year ago. I think tomorrow, I'll say this, TJ, I don't have a rooting interest one way or the other between UConn or Purdue. The number one thing I want to see is a good game here, but I think all of us need to take a moment and appreciate the greatness of what UConn is. Even if they lose tomorrow, just to get back here, this incredible 2-year journey, I think is just outstanding, just uncharted territory right now.
Well, especially having to rebuild it.
Right.
Having to rebuild it and retool it a little bit because, again, Adam's going to speak to this in a couple of moments. They lost players, plural, to the NBA. Again, they've got a fan base here. They've probably got 15,000 and maybe more than that for Monday night. A lot of people may have been waiting and saving up to be here Monday night with the cost of tickets. I just looked. Hey, speaking of tickets, our sponsor, TicketSmarter. I'll put this up on the screen on the live video show. How about that? TicketSmarter.com, the TicketSmarter mobile app. The get-in price right now is about $190 to sit in the top of State Farm Stadium. That's less than what it was on semifinal Saturday. That price might go up, though, coming up. The demand is high. Those seats are high. The better seats are $500, $700. Use TicketSmarter, the TicketSmarter mobile app, and make sure you use our promo code COAST20 as well. Promo code COAST20 saves you $20 off your order. Your purchase is safe and secure. It's guaranteed, and you can get the most competitive prices on the secondary market with TicketSmarter's mobile app and their algorithms, etc. TicketSmarter.com, TicketSmarter mobile app. Save $20 with the promo code COAST20. We've been plugging this away. One more game to go. Take advantage of it. Get in the game. Think smarter. Ticket smarter. And I think a lot of people are going to be trying to take advantage of however they can get their hands on tickets. Again, Purdue had a massive following. Give me one final thought. We've got much more time to go over this, obviously, from an X's and O's standpoint. Any other big picture thought on the Sunday in between? Here's another factoid. The Big Ten doesn't have a national championship as a conference going back to Michigan State in 2000 over Billy Donovan in Florida and Indianapolis. They've had multiple attempts with Ohio State, Michigan State, Michigan a couple of times in the championship game. None of them have gotten it done. Purdue now gets that chance carrying the Big Ten flag. Any other thoughts, Tyler?
To add to that, too, the Big Ten women haven't won a national title in 20-plus years either. So could be a historic weekend potentially with Iowa up by 9 right now. With that said, we've talked about Purdue a lot of this whole idea for a long time. They couldn't win it, couldn't get the job done. What would this mean if Matt Painter can find a way, if this Purdue team can win tomorrow night and get the job done?
After losing to a 16 seed this time a year ago.
Right. Then does anyone change how we think of him more this tournament than Matt Painter? We talked about Dan Hurley previously, that before this UConn run, if you will, he had never won a tournament game at UConn before. Now he's looking like arguably the best coach in the country. Matt Painter here with a chance to win his first national title. If he can beat the behemoth that is UConn, to me, that's very fascinating. I think all of a sudden we're talking about Matt Painter in Hall of Fame territory.
All right, love Tyler's insight. Listen, great stuff. Look forward to everything that's going to go on tomorrow night. You'll be part of our post-game coverage as well after it's all over with here in the desert for UConn and Purdue, the 2 1 seeds. Purdue going for the first ever national title in program history. UConn going for the elusive back-to-back. No team has been in the title game with the chance at the back-to-back since the Florida 017. No team had been in the Final Four as the repeat champion. Now UConn has a chance at history. So, Tyler, thank you. Great stuff. Hang in there for me because now we're going to go back to a conversation from earlier today with our insider analyst, Adam Zagoria, NJ.com, his Zags blog covering the New York, New Jersey area, the Big East, UConn's obvious domination of what they've done the last 2 seasons. So I get some perspective from Adam on all those subjects, the back-to-back title subject, and much more. Let's go to that conversation now.
Well, as I said, who better to help set up what UConn is about to go for than our analyst, our insider, NJ.com, the Zags blog. You've been on like the UConn beat for the better part of a couple of years, and here they are in the championship game again, Adam Zagoria. So what are your thoughts? They're on the cusp of a repeat.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's funny. I mean, I covered Dan Hurley as a high school coach, 20 years ago when he was at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark. And he ran that like a small college program. And here we are, 20 years later. And the guy's 1 win away from winning back-to-back national championships. I wrote a story on NJ.com, only 7 coaches since the tournament began in 1939 have won it, at least 2 in a row. Most recently, Billy Donovan in Florida in the mid-2000s. But also Coach K, of course, and John Wooden won a whole bunch.
Oh yeah, them.
Yeah. So that's pretty elite company for Dan. There's also only 2 active coaches that have multiple championships right now, Bill Self and Rick Pitino. I'm counting Rick Pitino's vacated Louisville championship. So Dan, with a win on Monday, would really be joining some elite company. And, of course, his brother, Bobby Hurley, won back-to-back championships as a player at Duke. So if Dan wins, the Hurley brothers will have 4 rings between them.
And one thing we should illuminate is making reference to Duke 91-92, Florida 06-07. that was basically the same team,
Yes.
almost the same team.
Yes.
He has done this, retooling some players, yes. Klingen's still there, Newton's still there, but he's had to retool with some different players. How much more credit do we give for that?
Yeah, we're in the transfer portal era here, TJ, where guys are leaving every year. UConn had 3 guys go to the NBA last year. He really only added 1 key transfer in Cam Spencer from Rutgers. I know the Rutgers fans are tired of me talking about this.
Well,
but he's been,
welcome to it.
Cam's been maybe the MVP of the team, and he's been able to sort of blend experience with Steph Castle, who's going to be a top 5 or 10 lottery pick as a freshman. And so Dan's really kind of figured out the formula with his staff of blending older guys with a little youth, and then next year they'll lose a bunch of these guys to the NBA, and he'll have a few freshmen coming back, but he'll probably have to add a few more transfers next year too.
All right, so let's get into the game itself. If everybody from the NCAA to Turner/CBS and really the powers that be had their druthers for this Final Four, they would have wanted these 2 teams. You got it. You got the Big Ten champs. I think half of Northern Indiana is going to be here for this game. If it was any indication Saturday night, they easily, Adam, verify this, had 30 or 40,000 fans there because the whole third deck was Purdue. So there might be 50,000 Purdue fans. You've got the interest of the Midwest. You've got the interest of the Northeast. And now what about the matchup on the court where you've got the 2 Goliaths in Zach Edey and Klingen? What are your thoughts as we head to Monday?
Yeah, I think Adam Finkelstein, one of the reporters, tweeted this is the first championship game ever with 2 centers 7'2" and over. I mean, there aren't a whole lot of 7'2" guys walking around anyway. And I did actually text a bunch of NBA scouts yesterday asking their thoughts on Donovan versus Zach, and they said, it's maybe signals the resurgence of the big man, and maybe we'll see more centers, prominently and getting drafted in the NBA. Obviously, in the NBA, you're going to have to be able to shoot the 3. Zach Edey doesn't do that.
Right.
Donovan, I think, can shoot it a little. As far as the game, I think, I'm picking UConn as the favorite. I think Purdue's best chance is going to be to get Donovan in foul trouble. If you can get 2 quick early fouls on Donovan Klingen, then UConn's down to Samson Johnson as their backup center, and he's not as physical, can't really guard, Zach as much. And conversely, I'm not sure Zach Edey can get up and down the floor quickly enough to guard Donovan in transition.
And if he's in foul trouble, they're 86. If Zach Edey's in foul trouble, obviously.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's going to come down to the guards. I think the UConn guards are bigger, more physical than the Purdue guards. Steph Castle, Cam Spencer, Tristan Newton, they're all big, physical, defensive-oriented guards. And I think they'll probably be too tough for the Purdue guards. Braden Smith had 5 turnovers in the first half. Yesterday, they can't afford to have that. And I think UConn against Alabama probably wanted to slow the tempo down a little bit, whereas against Purdue, my guess is they're going to want to run and pick it up a little and, see if Zach Edey can get up and down the court.
Purdue's never won a national title. They've only been in the title game one other time. John Wood and UCLA got them. Big Ten hasn't won a title as a conference since 2000 Michigan State. UConn has never lost a title game. Something's got to give.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens here. I'm looking forward to it. You're looking forward to it. You never know what's going on in Arizona. We're out here in the sun.
Yeah,
we got cornhole. We got cornhole back behind us, and we're ready for the championship game.
We got a ping pong table over here.
We got the championship game coming up on Monday night. We can't wait for this.
And we skipped our poolside tradition, but
it's not poolside, but it's still the beautiful Arizona desert.
Yes.
We're getting ready for this. Listen, I appreciate it. We'll catch up with you after it's all over. It's history no matter what happens. Thank you, Adam Zagorian.
Thanks for having me, TJ.
All right, back with me now is Ari Russell live there. You kept hitting me going, they're playing cornhole in the background. I finally had to make mention of it. I don't know who won that game. But listen, good to be with you on the Sunday in between the national semifinal wins for Purdue and for UConn. So you and I have done this a bunch. Sirius XM days, now with TuneIn over the course of 20-plus years. We were there for what happened with Florida and the back-to-back in Indianapolis and in Atlanta. Do you, as I bring you in, sense the same kind of thing that we're about to be sitting in on, a repeat for Connecticut here?
It's hard not to. We could break this game down in every particular angle that we possibly can before Monday evening. But at the end of the day, it really is, history, um, and different, as we've mentioned before, because it is a, significant, different lineup that they had. I've mentioned that before. But I do get that sense. I've been in that locker room of UConn several times already, this March and April, between the Big East tournament and the Barclays, and then here in Arizona. And you just really get a sense of this poise, composure, focus. So it, obviously the task at hand right now is a championship game, but they really do focus in on the game that is in front of them. I know you're probably going to pull up that Tristan interview, and we do take that part out. I do want to mention that I did ask him about Purdue, but it was right after the game. So I don't know why I asked him that question, because they're not even thinking about that. They just finished playing Alabama, but I bet you this morning, that's the first thing they're doing. They're looking at the film. They are focused in on how they're going to exploit the weaknesses of Purdue. Every team has weaknesses, where they need to possibly make adjustments here or there. You can tell that this team has a tremendous amount, and I mentioned this last night, a tremendously high basketball IQ, all of them. It's like they're like a hand.
Right.
Every finger, has a purpose on that hand, and they all really work in tandem together. It's really impressive to see them play, and it's not just on offense. Offense is really a beautiful system they have in offense. It's executed to almost perfection. It's unbelievable how highly effective and their execution of their elaborate offenses. It's really an elaborate offense.
Yep.
But on top of that, defensively,
Yes.
their defensive discipline is they don't even get off their feet for pump fakes. They stay on their feet. It's amazing.
I know you were very impressed with Karabon.
Yes.
Last night, chasing Mark Sears, the
Yes.
smaller guard, and Sears got his. He always seemingly gets his, but he had to really work for it. And Karabon did a pretty good job staying with him, even though it was a smaller, quicker guard as a big guy.
Well, and to me that shows a lot of his versatility. It showed me a lot. It actually showed me a lot for the next level. I was like, I saw Karabon on there. I always look at draft boards,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw him mostly in the second round. That made me look at him and it's like maybe a late first rounder type, because he just showed the level of versatility defensively to me. I already saw he's really good offensively, but again, and reliable, but defensively to be able to get on the perimeter like that at his size, 6'8", and guard the quickest guard, the highest scoring, player in Alabama basketball history, or at least for the season, had the highest scoring, most points in the season for an Alabama player, which is significant. They've had some big high scoring players in their history, and he has that record, significantly so. And he did some plays that I think defensively turned that game around and really choked out Alabama and their chances. That block shot he had was something that was really impressive. A couple of pump fakes, didn't go for it. Sears tried to get some room, and he just knocked it into the front, to the media, that first or second row of the media. And I think that played a role also in Spears' ability to is mentally like, all right, can I get past this guy? And they kept him on him, and he tried to go in on the drive, and Karabon blocked him again. And so I think that probably took a lot of wind out, and that was impressive.
Again, Ari Russell is with me here. We're live as we do this show on the platforms of college basketball coast to coast on Sunday afternoon. We'll be here for a few more minutes in between the national semifinal wins by UConn and Purdue, setting up their collision Monday night here at State Farm Stadium, Glendale, Arizona, the home of the Arizona Cardinals. We're all the way out west. Ari's a New York guy. I'm a Florida guy. Everybody
I'm a
in
DC guy living in New York.
DC, New York guy. But, I mean, New England has cleared out to come here. Northern Indiana, again, West Lafayette, Indianapolis, all of that. They're coming this way, too, for the championship game in the Arizona desert. We're looking forward to that for tomorrow night. Why don't we do this? We do love your ability to go in and get interviews and conversations, etc. You did this with the guard Tristan Newton. He helped this team win a national title last year, 12 months ago in Houston. With some big plays, a former East Carolina player and a transfer that Danny Hurley found, and it goes together with, like you said, like the hand. He's part of the hand. He's a role player. Newton had 12 points, had 9 assists in the win over Alabama, and Ari.
Hold on, it's hard to call him a role player. He is first team All-American.
He is first team All-American. Well, he plays an important role.
Yes,
a prominent role on this team, but he is one of several. But
Yes,
it's a good correction from you. But last night he didn't have to have 25 and 10, even though he had 12 and 9 assists. But it's still good enough in that game. So here was Tristan Newton with you after it was over with in State Farm Stadium, and UConn had the victory that gives them the chance now to go back-to-back.
Tristan, first off, congratulations on getting to the final. But, I mean, that was a heck of a shot that Alabama threw at you tonight, and you guys, definitely prevailed. Just talk a little bit about the victory.
Yeah, I mean, they played a great game. They were shooting the ball great in the first half. We knew we weren't shooting well in the first half. We were still up by 4 at halftime. That's a great program. Their coach there is amazing. And we knew it wasn't going to be an easy game. We just know we had to weather the storm and play all 40 minutes and we'll win the game.
Now, talk about the team's resilience as far as, again, this was one of the closest games that you were playing, or late in the game. You've been pretty dominant, especially in the early parts of the second half. They kind of kept it tight. Then you got it to 10, and then that was it. But just talk about how when you kind of smell blood in the water, it just seems to be the poise this team has.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of poise, a lot of experience, and everyone knows what it takes to win games at this point of the season. And we never get rattled. We just know defense rebounding and sharing the ball will eventually win the game.
And it seems like your offense is very dynamic, right? Just talk a little bit about that. Everyone is moving around. It's just something, honestly, I've watched a lot of college basketball. I haven't seen something as efficient or really watched the team as high a basketball IQ. It seems team-wise, it's quite, impressive. Just talk about that.
Yeah, the coaches do a great job of game planning and drawing up plays. So, they watch the type of defense that the other team runs, and they do a great job putting in the plays that we need to be successful. So it's all credit to them, and they give us the freedom to take shots that we want to, but also, we have to be selfless and get everybody else involved. So credit to coaches.
All right, Tristan Newton will probably have a big hand in whatever happens for UConn on Monday night. And again, Purdue stands in the way, a team that has only been here one other time. And it was longer ago than almost anybody that's around, except the old school Purdue fans, alumni, and media can remember. 1969, they lost to UCLA in the championship game in 69. So quick math tells me that's 55 years. 55 years since they've gone for one. UConn's got 5 of these, 5 championship wins since 1999, including one last year. So maybe that's an advantage there. But, again, speak to it being in that locker room just real quick one more time. Composure, right. Almost like they understand. Still one more big step to take. We're not overly excited by winning the Elite 8 game or winning the Final 4 game.
No, they're not overly excited at all. The mission is to win the title, to win the next game in front of them. And they like I said, they play with a tremendous amount of poise. Even last night, Alabama really could have put a lot of pressure on them, as much pressure as I've seen them in this postseason. A lot of pressure, and it just didn't seem to have any. They ran the plays the same way. There wasn't any, confusion or anything like that. They just kept executing whatever. And then on a defensive end, they stepped it up a little bit and made the adjustments. It's just remarkable. Well-coached team, but also you got to give these guys credit for executing. That's so important to execute the game plans, the coaches. It's just everything is in tandem. They're all in sync. It's very hard for me to see how anybody else can do something about that. I haven't seen it yet.
Well,
we haven't. None of us have seen that in 2 years.
We've talked all month that this looks like repeat. We're now on the doorstep of it happening. And again, full respect to Purdue as the regular season champs and Edey as the player of the year. He is a monster physically. He'll be a presence tomorrow night. But by the same token, UConn has won in various ways. You saw it firsthand at the Big East. We've seen it throughout this tournament. They are favored to get this done, and it's history no matter what. Again, a repeat for them would be only the 3rd time in the last 49 years. Duke 91-92, as Adam Zagoria said. Bobby Hurley, a player on those 2 teams. Florida 06-07 for Billy Donovan, Joakim Noah, Al Horford, Corey Brewer. We lived that. We were there. And now this for UConn. Or if Purdue somehow pulls this upset They avenged losing to a 16 seed a year ago, Fairleigh Dickinson, and come back and win the national title and repeat what Virginia did 2018, 2019. They lost to a 16 seed in 2018, came back and won the national title. So we get serious history either way.
Right.
Not bad for a Monday night.
But here's the difference. Let's be real. Like the mountain that Purdue has to climb to get there is significantly steeper than Virginia. Not to take away the mountain that Tony Bennett and that Virginia.
Well, you know who one of the teams Virginia beat was Purdue.
Yeah, yes, it was. Yeah,
among others.
And that was where Carson Edwards was having an unbelievable year and actually had an unbelievable game. I think he had almost 40 that game, 38, something like that. And they overcame that game remarkably. But this is a significant mountain. It's steep for Purdue because this UConn team just looks unbeatable and looks historically good. I mean, this is one of the best teams I've ever seen play.
And one more step for them to finish it off. Now, we are monitoring the women's championship game. Epic interest in this championship game. South Carolina and Iowa are now tied. It looks like it's going to be a great second half for whomever wins this to South Carolina. Here we go again with history. Do they get the perfect season, avenge their loss to Iowa, or does Iowa end up with Caitlin Clark finishing off a remarkable, staggering, all-time run of being the defending champ LSU, beating the iconic UConn program in the Final Four, and then beating the unbeaten #1 team in the country?
Yeah,
it would be wild if that happened. So the women's tournament will play out in Cleveland on this Sunday. Men's championship game coming up 9 Eastern time on Monday night. Ari Russell, we're looking forward to being back tomorrow, 3 Eastern time, 12 Pacific, out here in Arizona, where we're going to be on the College Basketball Coast to Coast platforms, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as the TuneIn streaming channel. Make sure to be with us, however you're finding us and hearing us. You and I are going to enjoy the rest of Sunday and get ready for Championship Monday and history no matter what. Final thought?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. We have plenty of time to break this down even further, and tell some stories about previous Final Fours where I am a maniac or something like that.
Of course.
And I'm actually headed off to the Suns game. I get to see
NBA.
Yeah, the Suns, against New Orleans. So that's cool. I saw Zion Williamson in college. I don't think I've ever seen Kevin Durant play, so that's pretty cool. I'm still a bigger fan of college. Let's be real. So to me, it's college and then NBA. I'm a big basketball fan,
right?
Junkie. But college is definitely number one. So, but I still get
you'll get to be there in person. You and Tyler are going to be hanging out there. Yeah. Good for you. I will just say this lovingly: there will be no one that remembers the regular season Phoenix New Orleans game in a couple of weeks, much less a couple of years. Everybody will remember the Iowa South Carolina game, and everybody will remember what's going on Monday night with UConn and Purdue. That's why nothing beats this event in sports. And the women are now coming along with the interest, the ratings, the depth of field. That's one more thing. You didn't really get to weigh in on this before we leave with the whole UConn media mafia. The UConn media mafia also needs to acknowledge Lobo, Taurasi, Bird, any of them that are speaking out. When their all-star teams were flattening everybody and winning 100 games in a row, the depth of the field was not the same thing. You know how we know the depth of the field is different over the last 8 or 9 years? Because UConn hasn't won it once in the last 8 or 9 years, and multiple teams like Notre Dame, like South Carolina, like LSU, maybe Iowa today have been able to win it. So the depth of the field argument also puts the UConn media mafia in their place.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like watching Michael Irving, but like 7 of them, when talking about the Cowboys. Is Michael Irving gets excited when he talks about the Cowboys. Also,
of course,
Hurricanes, obviously. But when he's talking about the Cowboys, that's like how it is. It's like, and so when you're not really a fan of it, it does from the outside. It's like, yeah, I know it's a lot. It's a lot, and it's like, I would hope that if Caitlin Clark, they should just give her flowers no matter what. Like, relax. Mm-hmm. I could tell they're still salty that she beat them, and how it was done. I can understand that salt, but at the end of the day, like, take it down a notch. I get it. Like but
and by the way, one more point. You know this, but one more point, and we're going to get out of here on the men's Final Four. She has now taken the audience to a level that those others that we're talking about, any of those players, we're talking about Cheryl Miller in the 80s. We're talking about Candace Parker with Tennessee, Shaniqua Holzclaw a phenomenal player that all won multiple national championships in the 80s, the 90s, getting into the 2000s. Now this whole UConn brigade that won it, they didn't have 15 million people watching an NCAA tournament game. They didn't have what we believe will be 18, 20, 22 million people watching the championship game. Everybody that's an alumni of great teams and championships should acknowledge this has taken it to another level. What Caitlin Clark has done single-handedly in terms of the interest from her has elevated this thing 50, 75% in interest. And that's a great thing. You know that.
Well,
that's a great thing for everybody.
You know, there's a lot of depth that we can have a conversation that we don't have time to on why that's the case, you know, what it is. I mean, she is doing amazing things, and you have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, what it has also done is brought us to watch other players.
That's right.
You know, the storylines with LSU and
that's
Angel Reese, how great she is, and how it is.
Juju Watkins, Southern Cal.
Like, so there's a cavalry behind her now because of that, which I think is great. And maybe it elevates it further. So,
that's right.
So she's the watermark right now, but it's possible that a Juju Watkins can come in
that's
2
right.
years from now and just blow the doors open.
And
I'm looking excited.
And by the way, the South Carolina semifinal with NC State on Friday night had 8 million people watching prior to the Caitlin Clark game.
Right.
And previously, there were a couple of games in this NCAA tournament that had 6 or 8 million watching that didn't have Caitlin Clark in there. The point is, she has brought interest. All boats rise with the tide. You said give them the flowers, give them the credit.
I love Dawn Staley too.
Yes. It's one interesting thing, and I love pointing this out. Dawn Staley's talked the entire time about how physical they want to guard Caitlin Clark. They want to be physical. They want to be aggressive. Her players are all over Caitlin Clark in this first half, aggressive, and Dawn Staley's losing her mind that they're getting fouls called on her. So pick your lane. Pick your lane, because they all have 5 fouls to get. You got to do with one or the other on this. And right now it's a close game, and we'll see what happens with the women's game. Again, you're talking about humongous stuff no matter what happens here, because 20+ million people will have watched. It's either an unbeaten perfect season for South Carolina, avenging the loss to Iowa in the women's tournament last year in the Final Four, or it's Iowa completing what they couldn't complete last year when LSU beat them. And again, the all-time record-breaking player. She just broke another record for the most points in a single NCAA tournament or in their career. And again, a lot of the players, I'm belaboring it, back to the UConn media mafia. None of them have any of the records that Caitlin Clark's going to finish with, and she played less games in the NCAA tournament than all of them.
Yeah.
So we'll
just the last 2 years.
That's correct. You know, that's correct.
And
so
at the same time, their records aren't there because they had
all-star teams.
Yeah.
And the depth of field. I get it. It's all
multiple All-Americans.
But we just spent another 10 minutes talking about the women's game, deservedly so.
It should be.
Deservedly so. So we'll see how that plays out. And again, we will be here live on Monday. The UConn men will go for the national title, which would be back-to-back for them, and it would be six championships since 1999, a version of a dynasty. You've got to start talking about that here. If they get it, or will it be Purdue? I don't think so, but we're here to debate it and discuss it. Thanks to Tyler Jones hanging out earlier in the program. He's at Tyler Jones Live. Ari Russell on social media, on Twitter, X is at Ari Russell. Adam Zagoria from NJ.com and the Zags blog was also with us. Are you ready for Monday? Let's do it again Monday. We thank you for watching on the platforms of College Basketball Coast to Coast, and the show is archived there as well. Tune-in channel, College Basketball Coast to Coast. We'll be back live 3 Eastern time on Monday. Full game recap on the tune-in channel as well, on the audio channel after the national championship game. But for now, we are good on this day in between, this Sunday before the national title game for the men in Glendale, Arizona. For Ari Russell, I'm TJ Rives. Thank you for being with us on College Basketball Coast to Coast.